Welcome to this information webinar about Byron Shire Council's planning proposal to change the rules for short-term rental accommodation. This is also known as STRA, or holiday accommodation or holiday letting. In delivering this webinar on behalf of Council, I acknowledge and pay respect to the Bundjalung of Byron Bay, the Arakwal people as traditional custodians of the land within Byron Shire that forms part of the wider Aboriginal nation known as the Bundjalung. I also acknowledge and pay respect to the Widjabul and Minjabul people as traditional custodians within the Byron Shire. I acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people now who reside within this area. For some people, the content of this webinar may be overwhelming. Lifeline's crisis support service is available 24/7. Call 131114. 13 Yarn is a national crisis line providing support for Indigenous Australians 24/7. The purpose of this webinar is to share key information about the planning proposal and to explain the proposed changes to the rules for short-term rental accommodation in the Byron Shire. This webinar forms part of Council's wider community engagement activities, which are being carried out during the public exhibition of the planning proposal. This webinar is about 10 minutes long. The slides are also available to download on Council's Your Say page on Council's website. The planning proposal is currently on public exhibition. You can share your views on the proposed changes from the 1st of September 22 to the 31st of October 22. This extended period for exhibition reflects the importance of the issue for many people. Council is seeking to change the rules for holiday letting in Byron Shire. The technical planning term for holiday letting is short-term rental accommodation, or STRA. There are two types of STRA, hosted and non-hosted. The difference is whether the host lives on the property whilst guests are staying there. The host could be the owner of the property, a tenant, or a permanent resident. And to be hosted, the host needs to be living on the property, but not necessarily in the home being let to guests, for example, in a granny flat. Council is proposing to change the rules for non-hosted STRA only. STRA is currently regulated by the New South Wales Government under the Housing SEP. This is a state environmental planning policy that sets the planning rules for all types of housing, including STRA. At the current time, use of non-hosted STRA is limited to 180 days per year in the Byron Shire. This rule is set by the New South Wales Government and has applied to the Byron Shire since the 31st of January 2022. There are no limitations on the number of days for hosted STRA. More information about the rules for STRA can be found on Council's website. Council makes the changes to the planning rules through a document called a planning proposal. This document sets out the reasons why Council wants to change the rules, as well as the evidence to support the proposed changes. The New South Wales Government has allowed Council to progress the proposed changes because of the unique circumstances facing the Byron Shire. This includes the impact of recent flooding events on housing availability and affordability, as well as the existing high proportion of STRA compared to permanent housing. However, before Council can make any changes, it must consult with the community and take into account what it has heard. Council will then make a final decision about whether to go ahead with the changes. You can view the planning proposal on Council's Your Say page. This is accessed by the homepage of Council's website. There is a substantial history to the current planning proposal that spans back to 2019. You can view the history in the fact sheet available in the library section of the Your Say page. Most recently, in June 22, the Minister for Planning delegated authority to Council to change the rules. This is subject to the proposal not reducing the cap for non-hosted STRA on any land to a period of less than 90 days. As noted earlier, the planning proposal is currently on exhibition from the 1st of September to the 31st of October. Following exhibition and the consultation activities, an engagement report will be prepared that summarises what has been heard. It is expected that this will be reported to Council in December. Council will then consider the feedback and make a decision about whether to proceed with the changes. Council is proposing to change the rules in the housing SEP for non-hosted STRA. How this change impacts upon property owners will depend on whether the property is located within or outside a mapped precinct. Council is proposing to reduce non-hosted STRA from 180 days to 90 days per year for most of the Byron Shire. This will apply to any properties outside the mapped precincts. For parts of the Byron Shire within the mapped precincts, it's proposed to increase STRA to 365 days, i.e. all year round. There are 4 365-day precincts, one in Byron Bay East, Byron Bay West, Suffolk Park and Brunswick Heads. These maps can be viewed on Council's Your Say page. The precincts have been mapped because they're considered to be most suited to year-round letting due to their proximity to beaches and services that are often sought after by visitors to the area. Research carried out over the last 5 years indicates that Byron Shire has the highest concentration of STRA of any local government area in New South Wales by a considerable margin. Rapid expansion of the local STRA sector over the past decade has led to a loss of permanent rental housing and has contributed to a range of social and economic issues in the region. As identified in the planning proposal, these issues include the dislocation of long-term residents, upward pressure on house prices and rents, increased housing stress and homelessness, disruption from community, and a sense of isolation for remaining residents. The diminishing availability of housing near major employment areas such as Byron Bay also makes it harder for workers to live close to their place of employment, limiting the ability to attract and retain workers to the region. There are a number of documents that also establish a basis for Council's position to change the rules for STRA within the Byron Shire. These include the Byron Shire Community Strategic Plan 2032, the Local Strategic Planning Statement 2020, the North Coast Regional Plan 2036 and the Draft Regional Plan for 2041, and the Byron Shire Residential Strategy. All of these documents acknowledge the difficult housing situation in the area. This includes increasing prices and decreasing affordability, being met with an increasing demand for use of dwellings as holiday houses or STRA, as well as a loss of supply regionally from recent natural disasters. There are a number of independent studies that have been undertaken about the impacts of STRA and as part of the planning proposal process. This includes the Economic Impact Assessment, or EIA, that considered 6 different policy options. It also includes the peer review of the EIA that found some key concerns about the process and outcomes. Both of these documents can be viewed on Council's Your Say page. Several alternative planning options have been reviewed and considered as part of the planning proposal process. In particular, the EIA, or the Economic Impact Assessment, identified and tested a total of 6 variations to establish the relative impacts of each. Whilst each option results in various impacts, the planning proposal concludes. On balance, the planning proposal, i.e. option 1 above on the previous slide, that was also shaded pink, is considered to be the most effective option for mitigating the impacts of the STRA sector, as it will deliver a 27% increase in long-term rental and owner-occupied dwellings and is unlikely to have a significant impact on tourism or employment. This compares favourably to other options discussed in the EIA, which will provide very little assistance to the housing market while offering only slightly greater economic benefits. If the changes are supported by Council following consideration of the exhibition outcomes, there will be a 12-month transition period for any changes to commence. This means any changes will not come into effect until 2024. There are two main ways you can share your feedback on the planning proposal and the proposed changes. The first is to complete the online survey, which is available on Council's Your Say page. And the second way is to write a submission using the online form, which is also available on Council's Your Say page. That brings us to the end of this webinar. If you still have a question about the planning proposal and how it impacts you, please contact Council's STRA project team on 666 26 7072 or by email at the STRA team, which is stra.team@byron.nsw.gov.au. Thank you for listening to this webinar.